This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 187, and I'm back in the saddle. Shout out to my tag team partner who held me down last week. I was not in the position to give you any good content, so why do that? Why defame our name and deface our product? I'll just let the big man come through and do his thing, and I appreciate him holding me down. On today's episode, we've got a whole lot to talk about. New terms for Jeff Hardy in a deal with WWE. What's going on with Karrion Kross? Brock Lesnar rumors. We've got all of that in the news and notes. AEW is scheduled to go off tonight, Saturday night at 8. We're going to take a quick preview at what they have to offer, as well as the biggest news, topics, and trends in wrestling. And, of course, we had a pay-per-view last week. I didn't watch it. I was not in any position to watch that, but the Doc did. And the Doc's going to give us his thoughts on what took place with Hell in the Cell. And let's welcome in the big man himself. Like I said, my tag team partner. He is the heavyweight champion of the world. He is the one. He is the only. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
I tried my best to channel my best Alexa Bliss and get you to levitate into your brain what happened at Hell in a Cell, but it didn't work. I'm not as good as Alexa Bliss. Yeah, I sat and watched it. Yeah, I recorded a preview, and yeah, I was like, what the hell am I going to be doing watching all this shit? But look, I took one for the team. That's what you're supposed to do. I sat through that thing and watched it, and okay, look, and here's the thing. If you heard my last podcast, I said I'm excited. I like Hell in a Cell. You're used to big spots, you're used to good things happening. And yeah, there were some good surprises, but by and large, when you see these results, there were some surprises, which is good, but when the main event happens and you have this hellacious, great matchup and you have the stipulation that Drew cannot challenge Bobby Lashley anymore if he loses, and then he gets distracted and it's a roll-up. It's like I almost said to myself that they should do that. They should just have one of the weirdest endings where something unusual happens. But by and large, I think the manner in which the pay-per-view went down, I think for those that were just like, okay, let's get the kickoff to SummerSlam, it did the job, but it could have been so much better.
Yeah, the main event you had a bit of an issue in with. I was part of the group message that we have where we go back and forth with our buddy Kenny, who's a huge wrestling fan, absolutely huge wrestling fan. So I was watching these messages come through. I didn't partake in it, but you had a massive issue with the main event. Before we got there, though, Natalya defeats Mandy Rose via submission. We're just going to give you the results real quick, and then we're going to kind of drill down on a couple of these matches. Bianca Belair defeats Bayley via pinfall to retain her title. I don't think any big surprise there. Seth Rollins defeats Cesaro via pinfall. I think there was a missed opportunity here. Alexa Bliss defeats Shayna Baszler via pinfall. That was that weird match you were kind of talking about with Alexa Bliss. Sami Zayn defeats Kevin Owens via pinfall in their, 1,142nd match in just WWE alone. Bit surprised Sami Zayn won that, I'll be honest with you. Charlotte Flair defeats Rhea Ripley via disqualification. And then Bobby Lashley defeats Drew McIntyre via pinfall to retain the title. Now, looking at some of these matches, like I said, I think there was a missed opportunity here with Seth Rollins defeating Cesaro. I feel like Cesaro he's come back now, absolutely laid waste to Seth Rollins a few weeks ago on Monday Night Raw or on SmackDown, I apologize. And he could have absolutely helped catapult him even further. And I think WWE drops the ball here yet again by letting Seth Rollins get a win. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, it's 50-50 booking, which should end up being the payoff at SummerSlam. I understand the concept, but, there should be some recognition that there's an ADD society going on. But WWE has done a better job of kind of extending feuds out to, 2 and 3 matches with each feud that goes on, which is fine, but you get 50-50 booking. And in this situation, I think you have a large segment of your fan base that's clamoring to see Cesaro win. So it's disappointing because you felt like maybe Cesaro could have won this feud and then kicked off maybe into the Intercontinental title, into some bigger type stuff, because this is a guy that, everybody's clamoring for to have some success. And like you said, Sami Zayn getting the win was surprising, but like I said, going into it, we didn't want to see the match in the first place. So what purpose did that serve other than, okay, another matchup that you had with Kevin Owens? And then I think the main point that we should talk about real quickly is Rhea Ripley now kind of turning into a heel slowly, or kind of in that mixed mold of a badass because the tactics she was using? You've brought it up before in the manner in which now she wrestled, but it just didn't feel like, it's hard to do that when you have a bunch of jumbotrons and screens and things like that. But Rhea definitely took it to the next level, and she was smart. Got herself disqualified, and I thought that was a real unique way. I thought that was the highlight. I liked it. I think that, when you see some feuds, you want them to end like we referenced earlier. But Charlotte and Rhea, they should just keep it going, and they are at Money in the Bank. But the payoff in the main event wasn't there, but give credit to Drew McIntyre. Dude just let his body get worked. And Bobby,
on Monday, his body looked like it was in a car accident.
Exactly. And you got to give him credit. The dude is a high-rate worker, and he brings it when it needs to. It's just unfortunate that the writing, who lets these things slide, I don't get it. And we'll talk about that in the news, too, because, a WWE writer made big national news and then got herself in trouble for things that were said. But it just, I would say this. Now it's good in that the wrestling was good at Hell in a Cell. It's just the writing, the producing, the way in which stories are told and ended are not in line with what I think people want. And Alexa Bliss, that's just, Shayna Baszler's a badass. Just have a match. That one just deserved a clean ending. And this whole whatever that, I don't like this version of Alexa Bliss. Just straightforward. I liked her before when she was with others and things like that. This version, it's kind of going to be one of those eras in which you look back and laugh, but I don't like this version of Alexa Bliss. So it was a turnoff, and she gets the W. Great. Now let's see what transpires for her as she moves forward. Overall, B+ pay-per-view. You would like the wrestling. You probably just won't like the results and the way in which matches ended.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to what you brought up about Rhea Ripley. I think it puts her in a bit of a weird spot. Now, I think she's fantastic. I think she does a great job in the ring. I think she cuts a pretty good promo. I think she's got an awesome look to her, too. I think she's interesting. Trying to play this gray character where you're kind of a heel, kind of not a heel. You do a lot of heel tactics, but you're considered a babyface. That's a really tough spot to put even the most seasoned wrestler in. Like you could possibly put somebody like Charlotte in there, but I think she has such a track record of being a heel that it would just come off as more heel tactics from her. So she probably wouldn't be the best candidate for it, but she has the experience where she could probably pull something like this off. Rhea Ripley trying to pull this off. Rhea, you got to remember, she's still pretty young. She's still kind of green in the business. To put her in a spot like this to try to pull this character off and to be able to do this, I think it puts her at a little bit of a disadvantage, and it's a little bit unfair because you're not 100% sure she's going to succeed with this because she is so new. And again, I think that goes back to a little bit of what you're talking about with the writing, with the producing, with the vision that they have for wrestlers, and things just, it doesn't seem like in WWE, it seems like things are just a little bit disjointed. Like, the thought processes don't get all the way through to whom they have to get through. And it seems like you have way too many hands in the pot. And what happens is you've got too many people working on different things. And when you're trying to put a meal together, or you're trying to put this presentation together in this case, you just have too many people doing too many things. And it just goes in too many different directions and gets messed up. And I'm afraid for Rhea and for her character because WWE has dropped the ball with her before. When they had her get defeated by Charlotte for her NXT title, she took a huge hit. Like, there was no reason for her to lose that belt. She was on a rocket ship to the moon. She had beat Shayna Baszler, who, like you said, an absolute badass. Shayna gets called up. They drop the ball with Shayna. Rhea then gets the title in NXT and runs with it for a while, only to have Charlotte come in, take the title off of her, and they don't really do anything after that with Charlotte. Charlotte was supposed to help elevate somebody else. She really didn't do that. So Rhea loses the title for what was seemingly no good reason. Her confidence takes a big hit. She's talked about that. But more importantly, I think her character in the scope and the vision of the fans also takes a hit. So this is one of those things where WWE is going to have to tread very softly. And if this is what they want to do with her, they're going to have to be patient with her, and they're going to have to give her a little bit of rope. And hopefully she's got the chops to make it work. I hope so. Let's transition over to Monday Night Raw. This is really weird. Eva Marie just debuted. She was with Nevin Piper, who they now have named Doudrop. I don't know. In this match, as it's kind of unfolding, Doudrop ends up hitting a couple of moves, goes for the pin. Eva Marie tags herself in, goes for the pin, gets a 2 count, goes to tag back out. Doudrop drops off the ring and kind of walks away. Do we have a breakup already? Like 2 weeks in? What's going on here, John? What is happening?
Well, this is what I said on last week's podcast. I wish you would listen because I had some funny digs at you there. It was funny, but it was something where I said, okay, this is going to be potentially her first feud, and it played to form, and it made sense. The thing that was embarrassing is, how are you going to call this lady Doudrop? She has a name. She has a following, and they botched it when the announcers were like, who's this? And everyone's like, okay. The only people that are watching your show are the million-plus wrestling fans, you morons. So you're not bringing in casual fans at the moment because you got a 1 rating. So everyone that's watching you is a diehard. No one's like, oh my God, who is this? It was rumored by anybody with 2 fat thumbs that said, okay, she's going to debut with Eva Marie. So to call her Doudrop was stupid. And that moment was when I was like, I can't. This is what.
Like, here's the thing: if you're a wrestler and they're like, hey, this is what we're going to rename you,
right?
Like, how do you not be like, no, like almost anything but that? You can call me Ajax the soap container. I'm not going by Doudrop. Like, what?
Right. And it's so bad. Creative is so bad with it. Nobody wants to see Eva Marie. She's just not a wrestler. So to put her in the ring, it's not believable. It's a bit now, and now they're playing up to it, which is fine. But by and large, I want to say this. I do want to say this. Eva Marie is better with her character. She seems more natural fit to be this person because it appears to be a more enhanced version of who she is, which is this diva and this person. That's fine. This works for a valet. This does not work for an in-ring character when on a pay-per-view you just had Natalya showcase what beautiful wrestling should look like. Eva's not that. And so to shove it down her throat is insulting.
Bro, you got it right there on the spot. She is something good to look at. She's a decent mouthpiece on a microphone. She is basically eye candy to walk you to the ring and to be your liaison. You don't need her in the ring. It doesn't have to be this way. Yet WWE continues to like to shove round pegs in square holes and see if they fit, and they just don't. And in this case, it just does not. Now, something that I thought was interesting, Drew McIntyre ends up losing to Matt Riddle in what was a really good match. This was to qualify for Money in the Bank. I was shocked by this. This is one of those matches you see on a card and you're like, okay, cool. Drew's banged up from last night. They could totally work it in where he could lose, but there's no chance he's losing this match. Instead, he ends up losing this match. I thought this was good. I like this. Now you compare and you contrast that to what took place at the end of Monday Night Raw, where Bobby Lashley ends up beating the hell out of Xavier Woods. I thought this was really, really interesting booking where you have one storyline kind of diverging into 2 separate ways. And this is something I think is good because we've been trying to get away from this Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley storyline now for a while. We thought Hell in a Cell had to be it, and it looks like it might be it. And that's why I bring this up. I think it's important for a guy like Matt Riddle to get this big win over a guy like Drew McIntyre. And it wasn't anything cheap. It wasn't anything that was awful. He beat Drew. It was a good match. They both looked really, really good in this match. There was a point there, probably 3 points there, where I thought Drew was going to absolutely win this thing with a couple of different moves. You've seen some really cool moves in this match. Now, conversely, Bobby Lashley, to close out Monday Night Raw, ends up getting into Hell in a Cell with Xavier Woods and just absolutely pummels him and basically calls out Kofi, who's locked on the outside. In the end, you got MVP, who breaks into the cage after Bobby Lashley has already won the match. They lock the cage and they keep Xavier Woods and Kofi separated, and they just go to work on Xavier Woods. I thought this was a great way to highlight how Bobby Lashley is almost indestructible. Just went through war with Drew McIntyre the night before. You've seen how that war affected Drew. Bobby Lashley seemed to show no ill effects from it and was able to beat the living crap out of Xavier Woods in a match that was supposed to be just as brutal as what he went through the night before. I thought it was really interesting booking here to kind of elevate a couple of different guys, Matt Riddle and Bobby Lashley, and to kind of work Drew away from this scene. What did you make of both of these matches?
Yeah, I really throughout Raw enjoyed the fact, okay, Money in the Bank. I enjoyed seeing the AJ Styles match, but now in regards to what we saw here on Monday Night Raw, Drew losing to Riddle, I thought was a surprise, but I feel like potentially speaking, Drew needed to be in the Money in the Bank, but not win it because he's just a star power. But I think having new faces, it kind of represents the next wave, and that's always great. And maybe Matt Riddle probably is the odds-on favorite to win the whole thing. But I like it. I like that Drew put somebody over, and that's something that you have to give credit. Where Drew McIntyre now can take losses, he can put people over, and a guy like Riddle definitely gets the rub off of that victory. Bobby beating the hell out of Woods was great because now this is where I had the problem, okay, and it lends to everything that's just wrong. You start off Raw with heat. You bring out the champ, which is great, which is what you're supposed to do. You have a hot MVP segment. All they got to do is just cut it down in half. I looked at it, and it was 8:13. I'm like, oh, my God, 13-minute promo with Xavier Woods and the New Day coming in to talk about, getting Kofi his opportunity, basically moving in line to potentially be next. And then you set up his boy getting whooped so that he has further fuel to take on Bobby Lashley. You can do promos, but 13-minute promos in this day and age where it's just basically like, I want to fight you, and yeah, okay, I accept. It's not written in a way that's going to be compelling for anybody that wants to sit through it. But I thought that it played well, having a Hell in a Cell on Monday Night Raw. Xavier Woods belongs, basically, bottom line. He belongs in the ring with big dudes. He can talk the talk, he can walk the walk, and he should be now one of those guys next that could be a U.S. champion and get in the mix too. But I just don't see a guy like that, potentially with some things that could be uncovered that he did on the salacious side of his life, him ever being the face of him. You know what I mean? You can't have that on your record and then be, hey, I'm the world champion, Xavier Woods. So you're pretty much always going to...
I get what you're saying, but
he'll be a good upper mid-card guy. He could be a reasonable intercontinental champion, but that's it.
I could see Vince being like, hey, I like what you did there. That was pretty good. Too bad you defaced our title with Paige, but let's talk about this.
Time to turn
the gold belt on.
The best would be if someone really wanted to screw with them. Bobby Lashley would be like, look, I'm ready to turn the page to your boy over here. And I think everybody would subtly catch on to what he was talking about. But
subtle jabs
here and there with the word page. But look, New Day's next with Bobby Lashley. You need to create new feuds. Bobby Lashley is legit. He looks the boss. And finally, they stabilized the ladies, and he's got a good crew of 5. And MVP is just legit awesome. So Raw was better, and I think it held more of the audience. But still, you just have a lot of wrinkles in the middle there all the way through.
Now, moving on to a former member of New Day. Maybe he's still a member. I'm not sure how we're doing this anymore with the split on Raw and SmackDown. But Big E is headed to Money in the Bank. And this is something we talked about early in the year where there were rumors and there was this feel that the reason that they split up Big E and they split up Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston was so Big E could get a shot. This is the whole reason behind the draft last year in pulling these guys apart. And it feels weird because we're almost a year now from that draft, and Big E finally qualifies for Money in the Bank. Is this the beginning, or does this feel like it's the beginning for his big breakthrough? Does this feel like it's now his time? Like he's going to get that legit shot? I mean, he's going to go into a match with, 7 or 8 other competitors where he's got to climb a ladder and grab a briefcase to do it. But this could be the moment where Big E kind of gets propelled a little bit, because I thought he had a fantastic match with Apollo Crews. I thought it was really, really good. There was two big, thick men just in the ring laying waste to each other. Big E gets the win here to move on to Money in the Bank, and we just haven't seen WWE do anything with him. Like, they've talked about this, and this has been discussed, and the rumors have been bantied about. But besides winning that Intercontinental belt, or it was the Intercontinental, or maybe it was the U.S. Belt, there wasn't a whole lot that really Big E has done. He hasn't had any big matches. He hasn't really been elevated in any way other than what we've already seen. Is this the way to finally get him to that next spot so he can then punch through and become that main eventer?
Yes, I think absolutely. Definitely on the path of a slow build, but that's the way it goes sometimes. But the thing that you're noting is that you can't make a star unless he beats other stars. And the roster is filled with a bunch of mid-card guys. So the problem is, and I think that's where the biggest issue is that you got Roman Reigns, and then you got a bunch of C-level guys that everybody likes, but nobody's hot. So when Big E beats, has a feud and wins, it's like, okay, it doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? He's got to beat Seth Rollins. He's got to beat Cesaro. He's got to beat the upper echelon of the mid-card, but it hasn't happened yet, and maybe it'll start. But yeah, of course, he's a believable character. But how do you do it then when you go, to highlight SmackDown, the Rated R Superstar returns, and he's next? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Where you could have had maybe a chance to have a new star. Or you go, okay, he wants to be next. You fight Edge. You see what I'm saying? The natural progression would be for Edge to put guys over and to make new stars, but they haven't gone in that direction.
See, I like how you set all that up, because what you said a few minutes ago, I thought was absolutely perfect, because Roman Reigns comes out, and all of a sudden he's ready to lay down a challenge for whomever, because he's defeated everybody. There's nobody else for him to wrestle. And Edge's music hits. And you're right. So the perfect setup would have been to have a guy like Edge show up a couple weeks ago, or maybe he shows up this week, and we kind of push this off a little bit, where Roman's going to come down and lay this challenge, and Edge could take on a guy like Big E. And like you said, he could either put Big E over, or this match could just end with them both basically knocking each other out, so they both get elevated to this point. But instead, you've got Roman coming down, laying a challenge. Edge's music hits, shows up like a man possessed. Like, I thought this was a really great moment. I thought this was a great bit, but you're right. There are different ways to get to this point. And I feel like doing it, WWE could have helped bring somebody up a little bit, could have helped prop somebody up, because Roman Reigns going down there and basically saying, look, there's nobody else here for me to fight. I've beat everybody that you have laid in front of me, and I've just destroyed them. And they even called out former wrestlers, which is something WWE doesn't usually do, like guys who are no longer with the company. And I thought that was really, really interesting. I thought this was a great moment, and I thought Edge coming down was a really nice way to break this up. To be honest with you, though, I was more interested in what Roman was about to say than I was with Edge coming back, because we've already seen this match. Like, we've already had this. And I would much prefer to see kind of which direction they were going to take Roman in, because right now I'm absolutely loving his heel character. I love his look. Like, he was in the ring on Friday night, and I'm watching, and I'm like, man, this guy has the look of a dude you just don't want to F with. He's a dude who you just don't want to mess with at all. On top of that, he's got Paul Heyman at his side. And I'm like, this is absolutely great. And he's about to deliver this speech, and all of a sudden, Edge's music hits, and he's just like, what? Like, he was shocked. Like, he sold it so well. The one issue I had with this whole thing was you had Edge basically talking to the hard camera, asking where Roman Reigns was, and if he just had to look to his right, he'd have seen Roman up on the ramp. And I was like, just look to the right. What are you doing? Why are you looking at the hard camera? Look to the right, talk to Roman, don't talk to us. Like, it becomes so unbelievable sometimes. Like, they did such a good job, and then they fucked it up at the end.
Oh, yeah. That's just the case with WWE, unfortunately. But SmackDown was good, and I'm really impressed with the week that they had, and now we're into the Money in the Bank season, which is always fun at this time of year.
Yep. How do you feel about Hit Row? So, like, let's just move over to NXT real quick. How do you feel about Hit Row? They were a faction that was basically formed a couple of weeks ago. We're going to talk about a couple different factions here on NXT. They weren't really doing a whole lot with Isaiah Swerve Scott. I think he's a guy who's got quite a bit of potential. They end up adding in a guy like Top Dollar. They end up adding Ashante the Adonis, and they end up B-Fab, Brianna, Brandy. And you've got this group of what would seem like unlikely heels, right? Like people who, I don't know, like most of these guys, I don't even know who they are. And me and you both watch a ton of indie wrestling, and maybe they weren't on my radar. I don't know how long they've been in NXT even. And next thing you know, they're paired with Isaiah Swerve Scott, and I kind of like it with him as the ringleader of this group that seems almost like they're street thugs, right? But they're here to mess you up, and they're here to wrestle you. And they've got all the makings of a classic heel group that you just want to absolutely hate. And I think just from the limited interactions that I've seen them in the ring, I think they can pull it off in the ring too, so they can back it up. I kind of like this group. I like the direction of this. I think it gives Isaiah Swerve Scott a little something to do because he, for real, he just kind of felt like he was a character that was just kind of middling away. They would do these different vignettes with him where he was in his recording studio and he'd have people in the background. And now all of a sudden he is front and center, and he is leading a group that looks like they could really challenge for a couple of different opportunities. So I kind of like this. I like what Hit Squad is, and I like how they are a foil for a lot of different tag teams.
For sure. I think it was Faction Night on NXT, and I think it's great. Hit Row, Diamond Mine. I'm excited, bro. I think NXT is now creating new storylines. I think that's what I think fans of that brand are really impressed with, is they just keep moving along and keep creating interesting stuff that you can get invested in. Hit Row was awesome, and Diamond Mine, led by Roderick Strong, bro, I loved it. I thought it was played out perfectly. You get them established, and I think that what NXT is able to do with the window of time that they have, flawless. I think Diamond Mine is going to be something really interesting to pay attention to.
See, I think Diamond Mine is going to be something to be really interesting. I think it could be a good group. I thought the way they debuted, though, was a little bit lackluster. Like, they showed up in like the final 30 seconds. You had this great match between Kushida and Kyle O'Reilly, only to have a deranged Adam Cole came out and beat the crap out of Kyle O'Reilly after the match. It was a fantastic match between those two guys. To then have Roderick Strong, Tyler Rust, and Malcolm Bevan and Hideo Suzuki basically show up in the ring with black hoods over their head to kind of take out Kushida. Like, it took three of you guys to beat up Kushida, and next thing you know, they unveil themselves, and it's Roderick Strong at the forefront of this. To me, I think it could be a good group because Roderick Strong is very, very good. I think Tyler Rust is a guy who needed some direction. He was just kind of putzing along. We didn't really know what he was going to do. He looked like he had a solid character, but I think it tells you what they think of Roderick Strong. And this is the thing. Roderick Strong is great in the ring. Roderick Strong does not have a great personality on a microphone. He doesn't have the ability to draw you in. I was trying to explain this all to Alyssa when we were talking about what was going on with Undisputed Era, and I was like kind of going through breaking down each one of the guys' strong points. And Roderick Strong he's a ring general. The dude's great in the ring, but he doesn't have the personality to where you're like, man, this guy he's the guy. Like Adam Cole's got that personality. I don't think Adam Cole's as strong as Roderick Strong in the ring, but Adam Cole's got that personality where you're like, I love this guy or I hate this guy. Roderick Strong doesn't really do that for you. So I think they almost have to pair him with somebody, with a group. And I think by pairing him with a couple of newer guys, they're hoping that Roderick Strong can help elevate these guys, which, again, NXT does things totally different than what WWE does. NXT looks at a couple of guys and are like, hey, these guys need to get elevated. This guy's here. Let's see if we can bring them all up together and maybe help push these guys a little bit higher. So I like that, but I think it tells you what they feel about Roderick Strong, and I don't think they feel all that great about Roderick Strong. And I hope going forward this group becomes very, very good. I felt like it was a bit of a letdown for your very first impression of a brand new group. I thought it could have been done a little bit differently. Plus, I'm one of those guys. It's kind of like my love life. I like it to start a little bit slow. I like it to have that slow, solid build to it. and then you just kind of pop off. And I just don't think we got that here. So,
Understood.
You want to give us your review of Impact real quick?
Yeah, real quick. It was a good show. I think I want to highlight the tag team match at the end. It was a pay-per-view quality match, and it was between Eddie Edwards and Kojima versus Violent by Design. And you got to pay attention to Violent by Design. I mean, I was impressed. They played the heel characters great. They worked over Kojima early and often, but the baby faces mounted an offensive attack. It seized the match with double top rope suicides, and I thought that the match and the action broke down, and the challengers tried their best to get the tag team titles, but it just wasn't going to take place. Darren caught a charging Edwards with the Revolution Bomb for the pinfall victory, for the pin, and I thought it was a great matchup. I thought that you now are going to have the opportunity next week to see Omega and the Good Brothers with Don Callis taking on Moose, Sami Callihan, and Sabin. So I think that by and large, a lot of good things are going to happen over the course of the next couple of weeks, especially with tonight being against all odds. So I was impressed with the show. It started off a little bit slow, obviously, with the women and things like that. Rosemary took on Kiera Hogan, with Rosemary getting the victory. Deonna Purrazzo and Susan was okay, but again, nothing great. The show started to pick up with Petey Williams and Trey Miguel taking on Rohit Raju and Shera. I thought that Raju and Shera getting the win was a good match. The X Division is just something you got to pay attention to. And like I said, it was highlighted by the main event, which I thought was a great, great tag team. A lot of good teases. And I think that, like we've said all along, however they're going to play out Kenny Omega and Moose, I think it's going to be great for Impact. They're doing a lot of good things. As they head to Slammiversary, I think it's going to be a great, great time for Impact as they potentially pick and choose who they want to move forward with from the roster of WWE talent that's been released. So Impact keeps chipping away. A- show this week with the strength of that tag team match. Go check it out. Now, Saturday, you said it, AEW, what are you looking forward to tonight?
So I think we've got a couple of big things going on here. And I think these two storylines kind of play into each other. You've got Jungle Boy versus Kenny Omega, and you've got Hangman Page taking on Powerhouse Hobbs.
Okay.
First off, you've got Jungle Boy and Kenny Omega squaring off. And I think this is a prime opportunity to where you can really help elevate and really push a new star. Jungle Boy is a crowd favorite. Absolutely great in the ring. Fans are definitely behind him. I don't expect him to beat Kenny Omega. I don't think you expect him to beat Kenny Omega. I don't think anybody expects him to beat Kenny Omega. What I do expect is for him to help push Kenny Omega to the absolute limit. And by doing this, you help elevate Jungle Boy. He gets the rub from Kenny Omega, which then leads me to Hangman Page, Powerhouse Hobbs. I don't necessarily care about this match. I think this is basically Hangman's filler, right? He's going to do what he's going to do with Team Taz for a while. It's going to go some other direction. But at some point, they're already kicking around the idea of when Kenny Omega is going to start dropping all these belts, because he's going through this whole belt collector gimmick. So he's going to drop a belt on Impact. He's going to drop a belt on AAA. That'll probably be to Andrade. He's got the AEW Heavyweight Championship belt. And we talked about this back when AEW first started, when they had their first match for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship match between Chris Jericho and Hangman Page. We thought it would be Chris Jericho, but we felt like Hangman Page was just a little bit of time away from being that big star, that next big guy. I could see Hangman Page, Kenny Omega being the big match where Hangman's the guy who takes the belt off of Kenny Omega. If you go back just a few short months, remember, these guys were a tag team. And Hangman loved Kenny Omega. And we thought Hangman was the guy who was going to go heel. Turns out Kenny Omega was the guy that went heel. It was this nice little role reversal. We weren't ready for it. Hangman basically prodded around aimlessly for a while until he kind of got himself back up on his horse, pun intended here. And now Hangman is doing some really great work. And I think he has a look. He's good on the mic. He is the next big star in AEW. And I think he could be the guy who dethrones Kenny Omega as the AEW champion. So a lot of stuff surrounding Kenny Omega. And I think tonight specifically, his job is to help give the rub to Jungle Boy, help elevate Jungle Boy up the ranks, while Hangman Page will be in the background kind of working and doing his work and doing his job to get to Kenny Omega to then be the next AEW heavyweight champion. What do you think about that?
Ooh, I like it. Hangman Page. I'm excited. I like what AEW's done. Hopefully they can continue their momentum. I know that they're about to start touring. Dynamite on Wednesday kicks back off, I think, this Wednesday. So we have an opportunity to carry some momentum and some intrigue at the top of the card, especially with some of the big hitters taking some time away. So it's good right now, and it's going to be July, August, September. It's going to be great to see which superstars that got released end up where, who ends up at Impact, who ends up in Japan, who ends up coming over to AEW, because there's a lot of potential good feuds, especially with the names you're about to release. Cause hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. I know it's a juicy one. It seems like every single week we're talking about some drama in regards to WWE. Hit me with this week's news, brother. I'm curious.
So Damian Priest reportedly could be back on WWE programming as soon as next week's episode of Monday Night Raw. According to Fightful Select, the rumor of a back injury are inaccurate, and Priest has been kept off of television for what are being deemed other reasons that are not disclosed. Fightful was also told that Priest has been healing up, but not from a back ailment. However, Dave Meltzer of Wrestling Observer Radio previously reported it was a lingering back injury. Nagging Priest in the back injury was an issue leading up to WrestleMania 37 that nearly kept him off the card. Now, rumors regarding Brock Lesnar making a return to WWE have been heating up, but reportedly it isn't any closer to returning. On Monday night on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer said there's nothing with Lesnar on the subject of him appearing on WWE programming for the first time since WrestleMania 36 last year. It's crazy. It's been over a year since Lesnar's been on TV. Meltzer report comes on the heels of Fightful Select reporting Sunday that WWE and Lesnar have been in talks regarding his return. Now, some big news in NXT. This is a possible huge shakeup that could happen. NXT champion Karrion Kross and NXT North American champion Bronson Reed made their roster debuts Monday as part of the main event taping. Prior to Raw going on the air, both Kross and Reed worked matches for main event, with Kross beating Shelton Benjamin and Reed beating Drew Gulak. Ross and Reed were at SmackDown last week to work tryout matches prior to the show. Ross reportedly wrestled Dolph Ziggler while Reed worked with Robert Roode. Ross reportedly didn't have Scarlett at his side, which is a huge departure from what you see in NXT. Now, WWE could seem to be taking a closer look at the two NXT big men with an eye towards potentially calling them up in the near future. According to Dave Meltzer, though, Scarlett may receive her own tryout prior to SmackDown on Friday. It's unclear if WWE could be breaking up Karrion Kross and Scarlett. In addition to being a real-life couple, Kross and Scarlett seem to be a perfect fit, and they've really enjoyed a lot of success in NXT, helping push each other. What do you think about breaking those two up real quick?
Ooh, man. I'm not sure I'm a fan of it. I think now, after a while, you get so used to people kind of along the lines on a small scale of Elizabeth and Macho Man. You just get used to seeing the valet with the guy. I don't know. It might be the beginning of the end for the lady in this relationship.
Yeah, it would be kind of, I think it would be bad for both of them. I think they kind of need each other. You can work her into the ring as more than just his valet. She could do some bumps if you want, but I think it'd be bad to break them up. Now, you mentioned this earlier. Reportedly, some backstage heat on Kenneth Mobley, a WWE writer who publicly admitted she didn't even know Bobby Lashley's name. The exact quote was that WWE officials are embarrassed and believe the admission makes the company looks blindly stupid. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Bobby Ashley. I mean, come on. That just one of those times where you got to be smarter. You may not have been needing to be a wrestling fan. Obviously, you're a writer, but you don't admit it publicly and you don't give an example because you're talking about the world champion who's supposed to be the face of the company. You might have went with maybe like, oh, I forgot, the high-flying guy in the middle of the card. You don't go, oh, I might have called him Bobby Ashley. Get the hell out of here. That made its way right to the top, and boom, she was gone. Rightfully so.
Here's the quote. So I'm on the Monday Night Raw team. So there's Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown, and the people I know that are on it are Bobby. His name is either Bobby Ashley or Bobby Lashley. I really should know that. He's like the giant black guy, and he and the people are part of his crew. I know that they are called, or at least as of last year, they call themselves The Hurt Business? The Hurt Business, yeah. They wear suits and they're like, we're cool. Yeah. This is what you have. This is why WWE is so freaking ungodly awful. Those are your writers. Poor. And finally, I don't know why Jeff Hardy subjects himself to this crap even more, but the WWE veteran and future Hall of Famer is reportedly working under a new contract that has been altered recently. According to Fightful Select, the new WWE contract Hardy signed has either been restructured, re-signed, or extended. It's still a little bit unclear. Fightful Select noted that Hardy is bringing back his old theme song, No More Words, which was crucial to him signing the new deal. Hardy previously said the plan is for No More Words to be used when fans return, which will be the case when WWE goes back on the road next month. Now, WWE on Friday released several more superstars, including Fandango, Tyler Breeze, as well as Killian Dane, which surprised me, Marina Shafir, NXT Tag Team Everrise, Arturo Rua, and 205 wrestlers Tony Nese, Arya Davari, the Bollywood Boys, Austin Gray, and Kurt Stallion. Now, we've got some mixed information coming out on who's the driving forces for these releases. Some outlets are reporting that Nick Khan is the head man behind the releases, while WWE is going to their main puppet reporter, Sean Ross Sapp, and they are stating that it is not Khan who is the driving force behind these releases, but WWE, again, unloading more talent. Sad day. That's going to be it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Thanks for making us one of your places you go to listen to wrestling podcasts. Doc and Jock, the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. We always enjoy it. Make sure you check out Against All Odds, Impact. Make sure you check out the Build Up to Money in the Bank. It's always a great pay-per-view and one in which we definitely pay attention to who could potentially be the next rising star to challenge Bobby Lashley and or Roman Reigns. Thanks, cuz.